How's it going, everybody? My name is Release Radar, and in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts and opinions using the Asus ROG Ally as my primary handheld gaming device for the last 6 months. So let's get into it. So at this point in time, the Asus ROG Ally has completely replaced my Steam Deck as my primary handheld gaming device, and I even recently sold my Steam Deck. Now, don't worry. I have plans to pick up a Steam Deck OLED and make content on that for you guys, so I'm still going to have Steam Deck content here on the channel. But right now, this thing right here has been just the way I play games while I'm traveling. I went on a trip to Kansas City, took this with me. It was perfect to play at the airport while waiting. It's a great little handheld device, and it packs more punch than the Steam Deck does. So games do run better on this. And, you know, having Windows on it is also a huge upside, but I'm going to get to like all the specifics here in a bit. But overall, my general experience with the ROG Ally has been very positive coming from the Steam Deck to this. Now, Windows is Windows, so you do have Windows level clunkiness, right? It's not as intuitive and fluid as the Steam Deck, right? The Steam Deck feels like a console. It boots into Steam OS. All of the games in the store and the community, it's all right there. And you can still get to Steam Big Picture mode on this, but it takes extra steps. It doesn't just boot into SteamOS, although you could put SteamOS on this if you wanted to. So overall, the user experience is pretty good, but it is Windows, so it is clunky. But because it's Windows, you can play Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 on this, and you can take that on the go with you, which you can't do with the Steam Deck natively. You can crack it. You can get Windows on the Steam Deck. There's ways to work around the anti-cheat for Call of Duty, not working locally on the Steam Deck, but on this, it just works, which is nice. Now, if you are in the market for a handheld and you're looking at the ROG Ally, the Lenovo Legion Go, and the Valve Steam Deck, and you don't really know much about computers or how to tinker with stuff, how to deal with anti-cheats, how to update your drivers, all that, if you don't want to mess with that, I honestly kind of don't recommend the ROG Ally because the Steam Deck out of the box, it just works. Valve takes care of everything through system updates. So, you know, you don't have to worry about updating your BIOS. You don't have to worry about updating your CPU. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff that you do have to worry about with the ROG Ally on the Steam Deck. So if you're just looking for a simple, portable PC gaming experience, although it's less powerful than the ROG Ally, the Steam Deck OLED looks to be a pretty good deal. Now let's go ahead and shift focus towards the specifications of the ROG Ally. When I got my Ally, there was only one model available, the Z1 Extreme, but now there's just a simple Z1 CPU and a Z1 Extreme. So I don't have any experience with the non-extreme model, so I'm not really going to touch on that other than mentioning right here that it's $100 less, but it performs worse. If you want comparisons between those two devices, I'll find a good video and link it down below for you guys from a different channel, but I just don't have my hands on this standard non-Z1 Ally. So specs-wise, the Asus ROG Ally costs about $700 new. You can get it from Best Buy. Mine came with an AMD Ryzen Z1 Extreme processor, which uses the Zen 4 architecture. It's 8 cores, 16 threads, about 24 megabytes total of cache, and up to about 5.1 gigahertz on the boost. The GPU is a RDNA 3 CU with up to 2.7 gigahertz, 8.6 teraflops, and the default is 4 gigs of RAM capacity. However, you can allocate up to 8 gigs, and I have mine with 8 gigs of RAM allocated. The APU power can go between 9 and 30 watts. 9 is low power mode, so if you're on the go and you really want to conserve your battery life, you can use it at a low power mode setting in the operating system, or when you plug it in and you want it to boost, you can boost up to 30 watts. The display is a 7-inch FHD 1920 by 1080, 16 by 9 IPS level touchscreen with 500 nits of brightness and a 100% of sRGB coverage. And one of my favorite features of the ROG Ally compared to the Steam Deck, I know the Steam Deck OLED is 90 Hz, the default Steam Deck goes up to 60 Hz, but the ROG Ally is 120 Hz, which is awesome, but there is also a display response time delay of 7 milliseconds. It has 16 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM on board at 6,400 megatransfers per second. That is dual channel. And for storage, you have an internal 512 gigabyte PCIe 4.0 NVMe SSD. In terms of I/O, at the top of the ROG Ally, you have a 3.5 millimeter audio jack, which is always nice to see. You have a slot for a micro SD card. You have a big port, which you can use proprietary Asus external GPU enclosures to connect an external GPU to the ROG Ally if you so desire. And there's also a USB-C there for display and power delivery. You have a volume rocker with some indicator LEDs, and then you have your power button. And to just briefly go over the input options that you have on the ROG Ally, of course, the screen is touchscreen, so you can use your fingers to click around through windows. You have a D-pad, a joystick, your Asus ROG. I don't think this is technically called Armory Crate. That's what this button is, but this button is how you access your quick settings. A select button, a start button, another joystick, ABXY, 2 front-facing speakers, and then at the top, you have trigger, shoulder, and then at the back, you have 2 rear paddles, which I personally hardly ever use, but they are there if you want to use them. And while we're talking about the input on the ROG Ally, one of the grievances that I have with this device is that the ABXY buttons feel kind of mushy. The Steam Deck's buttons just feel fantastic, and the ROG Ally in comparison is just a little bit worse overall. So the ABXY on this device doesn't feel that great. The triggers are decent. The shoulders are clicky and nice. The joysticks are wonderful, and I even put little covers on them. Well, I didn't put them on. My girlfriend did because I couldn't get it to work. But there's little covers on the joysticks, and it doesn't interfere with it. It just raises them up. Instead of it being concave, it's convex, which I just prefer. The triggers are nice, as I said. The shoulders are nice and clicky. I don't know if that's going through the microphone. And the back paddles, while they're nice to have, I personally don't use them. And I've even had somebody leave a comment on my ROG Ally video saying that the fact that the ROG Ally only has 2 and not 4 paddles, that's a deal breaker for them. So just be aware that this only has 2, unlike the Steam Deck, which has 4. But I don't even really use these that much. And overall, the D-pad and ABXY just don't feel great on the ROG Ally, just in terms of input. But everything else feels pretty good. One other thing with the controls on this device that I do want to let you guys know about, maybe this is just a skill issue on my part, but whenever I use the D-pad or try to touch the start or select button, sometimes my finger slips off the D-pad, right? If I hit right on the D-pad, it slips off, and then I end up touching the touchscreen. And the problem with that, if you're playing a game in gamepad mode and then you click the touchscreen, sometimes that game will freeze as it's changing input from gamepad to mouse and keyboard because you activated the touchscreen just by mistake. And that has got me in some bad situations in some of the games that I play where I freeze for a couple seconds because I accidentally roll off the D-pad onto the touchscreen, and then the game freezes up for a second and I die in whatever game that I'm playing. So that's happened to me quite a few times, and it does get kind of annoying. But once again, it's probably just a skill issue on my part, but I want to be transparent with everything that I'm dealing with these devices, and that's just a minor annoyance that I have. So now let's go ahead and talk about one of the big things with a handheld, and that is battery life. How is battery life on the Asus ROG Ally? So I did a test last night. While I was in bed, I was playing some Firewatch, which is a game that I never got around to playing. It's been in my catalog for a while. Side note, that game is sad. I've only played the beginning, but I did not expect that punch in the feels like right from the start of the game. I'm really invested in it now too. So I played about 2 hours of Firewatch at 720p with the refresh rate locked to 45 FPS. And well, it lasted about 2, maybe 2.5 hours, but it was nothing crazy. The battery life on the ROG Ally, as it's a more powerful device, is worse than the Steam Deck overall. The battery in here is not that great. If you play plugged into a power source most of the time, like I do, if I'm playing sitting on the couch, there's an outlet right next to my couch. I just plug the ROG Ally in. That's fine with me. If I'm playing in bed, there's an outlet right next to my bed. I plug the ROG Ally in. It's fine. But if you want to play it on the go without being connected to the wall, I recommend getting a power bank or something that you can take with you to charge this, because this battery life is just, it's not that great compared to something like the Nintendo Switch or the Valve Steam Deck. Also, much like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, traveling is super, super nice with the ROG Ally. It's nice to just have something to kill time with flights just inevitably get delayed, or while you're on the flight, it's just nice to have something to do. And so if you're going to do that, I recommend getting a travel case. This is not sponsored or anything, but I got this on Amazon. I don't even remember what brand it is, but this is the travel case. I have my ROG Ally in here right now. It's got storage up top, so you can store some chargers, dongles, and accessories and whatnot. And the ROG Ally fits perfectly in here, and it zips closed like nothing. And then bam, I have a carry case for the ROG Ally, because unlike the Steam Deck, the ROG Ally doesn't ship with a carry case, which I think is just honestly kind of a letdown for a handheld device, because you know, you're probably buying a portable gaming device to take it with you places, and it doesn't even come with a carry case. So on Asus's part, I do think that's kind of disappointing. So now really quickly, I just want to go through the SparkNotes versions of the things that I both like and don't like about the ROG Ally, starting with the things that I like. Now, one of the big ups for me with the ROG Ally compared to the Steam Deck is performance. I just like a little bit more oomph with my gaming devices, and the ROG Ally is a noticeable amount more powerful than the Steam Deck. It's not a drastic change like going from PS3 to PS5, but it is noticeable, maybe akin of something along the lines of a PS4 to a PS4 Pro, but not that big of a jump in between those two. I'm getting off topic, but it is definitely more powerful than the Steam Deck, and it's something that you will notice. And one of the ups and also kind of one of the downs with the ROG Ally is Windows. You can play games that don't work natively on the Steam Deck, which is a Linux-based device, because of just the jank that happens with Linux and some anti-cheats, like with primary example in this video, Call of Duty. It really doesn't work on the Steam Deck unless you tinker. But with the ROG Ally, because it has Windows installed natively, Call of Duty just kind of works, and you don't have to tinker with settings or download different versions or dual boot OSs on here to play a game like COD with an anti-cheat like Ricochet. Now, there are other things that I really enjoy about the ROG Ally, like the screen, the ability to change between 1080p and 720p. If you want to squeeze every ounce of performance for a competitive FPS title like, once again, Call of Duty, you can. But if you just want to kick back, put it in 1080p, lock the refresh rate at 60, and play a chill game like Hollow Knight, you can do that as well. And the ability to change your refresh rate is also really cool. When the device first came out, I believe the only options were 30, 60, and 120, but now you can do 30, 60, 90, 120, and 45. I know that's a little out of order, but like there's different refresh rates that you can cap it. So you can tinker with 1080p or 720p or 900p as well now, and then tinker with your frame rate limits and find that perfect battery level balanced range that you want to be in to squeeze just a little extra couple 30 minutes of battery life out of this if you're using it on the go. So there's a lot of messing around you can do without even having to dig down in the BIOS. It all happens through the quick settings menu. And it's just really cool that Asus has that level of customization just built in, and you don't have to restart the device every single time you make a change. So props to Asus on that front, but now it's time to kind of go towards the things that I don't enjoy about the Ally. But there's one more thing that I almost forgot. The speakers sound amazing on this device. I said this about the Steam Deck. I think the ROG Ally has even better speakers than those that are on the Valve Steam Deck.
All right, y'all. Next up, we have Hitman 3, which is now known as Hitman World of Assassination. I kind of forgot that they rebranded this game, so we're going to go ahead and load into this here.
But with all the positives out of the way, let's go ahead and shift focus to the things that I don't like about the Asus ROG Ally. So starting out, and this is something I mentioned earlier, but I just want to retouch on it if you just skip to this part of the video. One of the things that I really don't like about the ROG Ally is how often I, for example, go from the D-pad right to my thumb just slipping off and touching the screen, which if I'm playing a game in gamepad mode, I can control it. But if I touch the touch screen, it switches from gamepad to mouse and keyboard, and then I have to hit one of the buttons again to get it back to gamepad mode, and that just freezes up the game that I'm playing. It's happened more often to me than I'd like to admit. Maybe it's just a skill issue, but I also have big hands, so that happens a lot. So it's just something that I find really annoying. And another thing that's kind of annoying to me about the ROG Ally is the battery life. The battery on this thing just does not last as long as I really wish it did. It dies pretty quickly, and while you can tinker with your resolution and your FPS limit to try to find the sweet spot, chances are you're not going to get any more than 4 hours, maybe 5 or 6, depending on what you're doing out of this thing. And for a handheld device, you're probably buying it because you want to take it somewhere with you and use it on the go and use it maybe on a flight. And if you have a long flight and the flight doesn't have an outlet, you're kind of SOL. You kind of can't charge it. And if you can't charge it, it's going to die, and it's going to die pretty fast depending on the game that you're playing. And another thing that I don't like about the ROG Ally, now this might be my personal preference, but I do just want to make it known, is the fact that it only comes in white. You cannot get it in black. Why? It's like the PS5. You can only get it in white. Now, granted, Sony eventually launched their own face plates, so you can change the colors of it, and I bought unofficial black plates months before Sony launched their own. But electronics are black. Everything at my setup is black. My mouse, my keyboard, my monitors, and my speakers, my desk pad, my camera stand, my phone. Everything is blacked out. And then there's this. It just doesn't match. I would really like the ability to have a blacked out ROG Ally. I would sell this and buy that. Like, it would be really cool. But it comes in white. And one of the most annoying parts about that is, you know, I have hand sanitizer right here on my desk that I use. I wash my hands very frequently before and after eating, while I cook, when I walk my dogs, all that stuff. you just get grime on a white electronic. It's just what happens. It doesn't matter how clean you try to be. It's just going to happen, right? We are walking dust generators. Things are going to get a little dirty. And on a white device, it's going to show. I don't know how well you can see that, but there's a little bit of a gunk spot right there. I bring wipes with me. I wipe it off, but it just happens again. White electronics with gamers, maybe not the best mix. I don't Cheeto finger when I play games at my desk. I like to keep my spot clean, but some people do. And this is not a device you want to Cheeto finger with, right? So white electronics, it's not the move in my opinion. And so before I close out the video, if you want to hear my honest thoughts and opinions and my overall just recommendation or lack thereof for the ROG Ally, which, spoiler alert, I do recommend it. But if you want to skip to that, it'll be after this section of the video. This section right here, I'm going to have a benchmark of a couple games running at a couple different frame rates, a couple different settings, and just give you an idea of performance of the ROG Ally. So the talking head portion isn't going to continue until towards the end of the video. So if you want to go ahead and skip to that, I'll have this video timestamped. You can just scroll to it if you want to. But if you want to watch all the benchmarks and everything and the testing of a couple games, well, and so as you can see from those benchmarks, this thing really does pack a little bit of a punch. It's a great little handheld gaming device, and this should be of no surprise to anybody who's made it this far in the video. I recommend the ROG Ally if you don't have a gaming handheld yet, or maybe if you just have a Switch and you're looking to get a PC gaming handheld, I recommend the ROG Ally. If you already have a Steam Deck, I don't really think it's necessarily worth upgrading from the Steam Deck to the Ally unless you just have a lot of disposable income. And especially if you have a Steam Deck OLED and you just recently picked one of those up, there's really no point in just going from the OLED to the Ally. But if you are in the market for a gaming handheld, the top of the line Steam Deck OLED is not that far off in price from the ROG Ally. I believe it's like a $50 difference. So the ROG Ally is only $50 more than the top level Steam Deck, and it performs a fair amount better. So if you do not have your hands on a PC gaming handheld yet, and you're just kind of looking in the market and you're between the Legion Go, the ROG Ally, and the Valve Steam Deck OLED, while I've never used the Legion Go, I can at least recommend the ROG Ally. It's a great little device. It packs a decent punch. Being able to tinker with all your settings is great. And while there are things that I don't like the fact that it only comes in white and just doesn't match anything that I own because all of my electronics are blacked out, and the annoyances that I have with the fact that the buttons and the D-pad just feel a little mushy. And, you know, on a handheld with the controls attached, you're going to spend most of your time pressing those buttons. And if those buttons don't feel good, it kind of sucks. But with those minor grievances out of the way, overall, I do think the ROG Ally is worth it. Now, remember, this is the Z1 Extreme model. I don't have the regular Z1, and so I can't do performance tests on that. Asus, if you want to send me one, that would be awesome. But unless they do, I don't really have plans on picking up a standard Z1 Ally because I have the Z1 Extreme, right? Now, I do have plans in the future to pick up a Steam Deck OLED and try to get my hands on a Lenovo Legion Go as well. And the main reason for wanting to pick up the Steam Deck OLED is I sold my Steam Deck and the ROG Ally has basically completely replaced my handheld gaming experience, and it's been nice. There are moments where I miss the Steam Deck. I do think the Steam Deck is much more comfortable to hold than the ROG Ally. But overall, I've really enjoyed my time with this device. It's been my primary gaming handheld for the past 6 months, as I said at the front of the video, and I really don't have any major problems with it. Most of the issues that I have are just minor annoyances. So overall, I recommend the ROG Ally if you do not have your hands on a PC gaming handheld yet. If you're just in the market, you're looking at the Lenovo Legion Go, Steam Deck OLED, and the ROG Ally. The ROG Ally, from me at least, gets the seal of approval, you know, whatever that's worth to you, just from some random tech YouTuber guy. But I can keep rambling. I talk a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate all the support on the channel in my absence. More videos are going to be on the way. I'm going to try to post every single Friday with a short on Mondays and Wednesdays. But with all that out of the way, thank you again for watching. My name is Release Radar, and I will see you in the next video of whatever I make. Peace.